So the Quad was very quickly put together as a maritime task force to rescue and help the many tens of thousands of people who suffered when this tsunami hit across the Indian Ocean. And then it stood down after 6 months or so of relief effort, and the UN and other relief agencies moved in. And that was in 2005. And the Americans, the Australians, the Indians, and the Japanese in particular began thinking, there's something here that will help us stabilize the region, provide public goods, challenge China to be a responsible partner. And there were musings and ideas, but it was Japan's Shinzo Abe who made in his campaign manifesto to be prime minister in 2006 the promise that he would have a summit of these four maritime democracies, the US, Japan, Australia, and India. And he won. And then when he tried in 2006 and 7 to constitute the Quad idea, it had lost some of its luster for a variety of reasons. One was that in 2004, the Quad was providing public goods to help Asia. Abe's version seemed a little too rich and a little too much like an effort to counterbalance or even contain China. Another factor was within the domestic politics of all four countries, US, Japan, Australia, and India, there had been political shifts. The kind of values-based, critics would say, neocon flavor of the Quad, as Abe presented it, ran into resistance, even within the Bush administration, which had pivoted in its thinking after Iraq, because in 2005 and 6, we were in some of the darkest days in the counterinsurgency in Iraq. The Australian and Japanese governments had parliamentary elections, and more centrist or center-left leaders came in, and India hesitated. So in 2006, 7, 8, the Quad really lost support in these countries because of domestic politics and different thinking after Iraq and other factors. And China was, in this time period, under Hu Jintao, less of a menace. But later, the Quad came back as an idea. In particular, when Abe came back as prime minister in late 2012, he couldn't sell the Obama administration on the idea. The Australians had a more center-left government. They weren't interested. But when the Trump administration came in, when the Australians government returned to a more center-right conservative government, and when China began under Xi Jinping, departing from the more careful stance of his predecessor, Hu Jintao, and began really using coercive tools, attacking Indian troops in the Himalayas, militarizing the South China Sea, and many other things, embargoing Australia for criticizing China's stance on COVID and so forth. That really galvanized these somewhat more conservative governments, Trump, Modi, Scott Morrison, and Abe. And the geopolitics and the domestic politics realigned, and the Quad came back. And the Trump administration, with Japan, Australia, and India, held a foreign ministers meeting. And there was some speculation that when Joe Biden came in, a Democrat, there might be a return to the Obama administration's more low-key, slightly skeptical view of the Quad. But Joe Biden put in charge of his Asia policy Kurt Campbell, who had worked previously in the State Department and in the Pentagon, and who approached the China problem and Asia strategy from a balance of power perspective and from the perspective of strengthening our position by working with allies and partners. So Joe Biden, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, Secretary of State Tony Blinken, Kurt Campbell, they embraced the Quad and they elevated it to a summit with major deliverables, including a pledge to provide 1 billion vaccines from the 4 Quad countries to developing Asia, to work on infrastructure and maritime security. And I think, to the surprise of Beijing and even to some of our allies, Joe Biden has actually gone above and beyond what any of his predecessors did to make the Quad a core part of our strategy in Asia. And that reflects some changes in domestic politics, but really, more than anything, it reflects changes in how China has been treating its neighbors. more coercive, more aggressive, and more alarming.